Alrighty, so tonight we're going to be going over Proverbs chapter 10, verse 5. It's another really, really fun one. It appears to be quite simplistic on the surface, but as we would absolutely expect, there is an incredible amount of things happening underneath the surface. So we're going to get into a little bit analytical here. We're going to read the King James here, and then I want to show some connections in the Hebrew of how it's built. If you don't understand everything that I'm saying, don't worry. Once again, I'm desiring to accustom your ears to hearing certain things in the knowledge building over time. Okay, and I plan on doing some things in the future to be more explanatory pertaining to the grammatical elements, have it defined out for everybody and things like that, just to help see some connections. I think it's very, very valuable. Okay, so Proverbs chapter 10, verse 5 states, "He that gathereth in summer is a wise son." The word summer there has to do with that summertime harvest, the late summer. "But he that sleepeth in harvest is a son that causeth shame." So right off the bat, what we can see there is we can see a contrasting parallelism. The translators knew it was contrasting because you could see the word "but" is italicized. Okay, they added that in for us so that we knew exactly what it was, that it was contrasting parallelism, and that's the way it's supposed to be comprehended. So we have a difference here we have gathering and sleeping. So those are contrast. And then you have a wise son and a son that causeth shame. Okay. So when we look at the Hebrew, the connections are going to be much more clear. Remember, Hebrew, we're reading right to left instead of left to right. So on the very first word there is going to be the very first word on the far right, the first line. It's a participle. The word to gather, he that gathereth, that's a participle. So gathering. Okay, so gathering in the summer, and then you have an understood verb of existence, a son, and then in the English it has it as an adjective, a wise son, modifying the noun son. Here in the Hebrew, it's a hiphil participle. So we'll go over, the hiphil simply means it's causative, and we'll go over that in a little bit, but it's a participle. So he's a son causing comprehending. The word wise there is not the word that's normally translated wise or wisdom. And we're going to get into that so we can see the picture of what is intended for us to comprehend there. The second line has, it's another participle, but it's a passive participle. This is really interesting. That first one is an active participle, and the second one, the one right beneath it, is a passive participle. So he that was sleeping in the harvest, an understood verb of existence, a son causing shaming. So you have the parts of speech here, the elements are perfectly lined up with each other. Almost the exact same, with slight differences. And those differences are going to be really key to comprehending the whole. Okay, so we're going to try to not lose one of those. So in the descriptive literal translation down there, I have gathering in summer exists, a son causing comprehending. Was sleeping in the harvest exists, a son causing shame. So you could understand a little bit why the translators turned it into the way that they did, because if we were to read that, we would, in the English mindset, we wouldn't really comprehend what was happening. So if you, once again, go back up to the Hebrew there in the middle, go to the left, the far left. You see how I have the number 8 right there on both lines? Okay, that represents how many syllables are in each line. So you have the precise, exact same amount of syllables. So all of these little elements are God-given, and it's really incredible when we're able to start seeing these things. So bottom of page 1 here this is contrasting parallelism. So what is contrasting parallelism? Nathan, can you read that line for us, what contrasting parallelism is?
The thought or truth expressed in one line is basically the same as the thought or truth expressed in its parallel, line.
You're good.
That the lines express their truths using words and ideas which are opposite or in contrast. Sorry, my vision's coming up.
You're okay. In contrast?
Thank you. Contrast to their corresponding parallel elements.
Very good. So the thought or truth expressed in one line is basically the same thought or truth expressed in its parallel line, but the lines express their truths using words and ideas which are opposites or in contrast to their corresponding parallel elements. We will get into that. So I'm putting those there at the bottom of the Proverbs so that we can see whether it's synthetic, whether it's contrasting, or whatever type of parallelism it is, so we can help, so we can begin to really work on comprehending that a little bit more in depth. So basically what it is you have one design criteria. Inside that one design criteria, which is this proverb, you have a multitude of individual criterion that complete the whole. So in order to understand the whole, we need to seek to study to comprehend every individual piece and put it all together. Okay? So that's what we're attempting, that we're working on doing. So let's go to page 2. So anyway, so that design. So these are, like I've said before, this is one design, but it's two. But like a coin, it has two sides to it. Okay, two sides, two designs, which are really one whole design. So page 2. The Lord. Now, notice I put the word Lord in all capital letters. What does that mean?
His name.
That's his name. It stands for his name, right? So it's not a title of his that's used as his name, but this is his actual name that encompasses all of his titles, all of who he exists. And so it carries that authority because it represents him. So the Lord, the God who exists, the creator of all that exists, has established criteria for every situation, interaction, and relationship that exists, including every interaction that the created humans, created in the image of and according to God's likeness, were to have and would have with the creation itself. Okay, so once again, very, very important to start off at the foundation here, that the Creator, the God who exists, the only God who exists, is the one who has established every single design criterion that exists, right? Meaning, man, he's completely, perfectly done this. Let me read it and it'll cover it. So, each interaction with all of its individual nuances. Meaning, you can do something repetitively, but every time you do it, you're actually at a different time. You're a little bit older. There's going to be slight different nuances to you doing the same thing over and over again. So it's not really doing the same thing over and over and over again. There's different nuances to every time. So each interaction with all of its different nuances has established multiple individual criterion. Let me read that again. I don't like how I stated that. Each interaction with all of its individual nuances has established multiple individual criterion. That is, the Creator, down to the most minute detail, has established every individual criterion for how the creation is to interact with itself and mankind, and how mankind is to interact with the creation in that specific situation. There is nothing that is left out. Understand, the God who created his creation did so perfectly. And if man thinks otherwise, if it appears to man or seems to man that the Creator left something out, that's only due to the foolishness of that man or the ignorance of that man. Could you imagine serving a Creator that something skipped his brain and he forgot about it, or he left something up to chance, which doesn't exist, but he just leaves something up to chance, or the will of man? Hey, in this area you can do whatever you want. I don't have a design for that aspect, so I forgot about that. You kind of handle that the way you want to. No, not at all. There is nothing that is left out. Nothing non-established or non-designed for man to decide for himself how he should interact with it. The Lord, once again, all caps standing for his name, Yahweh, has designed every facet, every aspect, every individual criterion. Well, look at me, I can't spell there. Criterion of the creation perfectly, as only he can, and then has placed mankind within that creation to have dominion over the creation, to steward it in perfect accord with the Creator's design. Mankind did not design the creation, nor did he create it, but he was placed inside of it, being that he was the last to be created on day 6, showing that he is subject to the design, just as the rest of creation is as well, under the ownership of the God who exists. Now, if you and I lose sight of that absolutely foundational truth, we will actually believe that we get to decide things for ourselves. That I don't need to seek to interact with it how my God has designed me to, because he forgot that piece. Do you see that? Or I will... This is incredibly important to comprehend. This proverb is another design criteria for mankind's existence, containing a multitude of individual criteria, all needing to be interacted with at the exact, precise moment and time. Okay? So we are subject to God's design, and God has designed everything in the most intricate detail, not even leaving a 0.00001 chance of mishap in any way. You can't dig deep enough into the creation or study it deep enough, or an aspect deep enough, and come to a point that wasn't perfectly put together. You dig into the nucleus of a cell, and it just gets busier. It gets more complex. Right? So every small, minute detail has been perfectly designed. And he's designed it for it all to interact with each other perfectly. He is designed for the creation to interact with mankind perfectly. And he's created mankind to interact with the creation perfectly. You see, that leaves nothing within man's realm to decide for himself. Nothing. This is incredibly important here as we proceed. So, okay, not just that, but there's a time aspect of precisely when everything is to be interacted with in a specific manner. Okay, so it's very, very intricate. The Creator is using the time of harvest and all the necessary knowledge, forethought, skill, and work ethic as an all-encompassing example of this design that affects every aspect of our existence. This proverb, generally speaking, is contrasting a son who gathers in the harvest at the right time. But think about it. We're going to get into it, but think about it. How does he know when the right time is? And then how did he acquire that information? And then what mindset must he have in order to acquire that information? You see, there's a lot there. So the right time, and ensures that everything is done precisely as it should be done, with not even a hint toward laziness. And a son who is the opposite, he is lacking in his responsibilities, has rejected the needed thought processes to accomplish the task, and has shirked them altogether. So in general, there's your contrast. The focus of the proverb being on the result, the focus of the proverb is on the result of both activities. But as we would expect, there is a lot more underneath the surface. There is wisdom with a capital W. This is the mind of God, his design, what he thinks, to be grasped and taken to one's self. Realizing that God built his proverbs to be something that needs to be worked in order to accurately and fully comprehend what he has given. Okay? That's how God's design works. It is of zero value for you or I to listen or even study the text and then walk away from it and not apply it to my life. There is all sorts of religious people that do that very same thing, and their life does not reflect one that walks in accordance with God's design. Okay, we were on Sunday mornings. We're looking at the Jews who were very, very good at that, and then we were looking at Corinth on Sunday night, who's very good at that or was very good at that. Right? And this is an old issue, not a modern issue. So, point number 2 there at the bottom. So. It's something that needs to be worked in order to accurately and fully comprehend what he has given. Go to Proverbs chapter 1, verse 2. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 2 again, just for remembrance. Okay? So we need to be thinking immediately that when I read the Creator's Proverbs, there is going to be more than initially meets my eye. I'm not going to fully comprehend what he has stated there in those few short words without the work of seeking to comprehend it in great detail. Okay? So Proverbs chapter 1, verse 2, we'll go through 2 verse through 6. So here's your introduction to Proverbs, and here's the reason and purposes for it. To know wisdom and instruction. Okay, hang on. Doesn't the world tell you not to be lazy? Okay, so you can go somewhere else and hear not to be lazy. So is that all that the Lord is saying here in his great wisdom? Just don't be lazy. No. So why do we need the Lord's Proverbs? To know wisdom and instruction. That's where we receive it. And to perceive the words of understanding. To receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment and equity. To give subtlety to the simple. You remember in Genesis 3, and the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field? It's the same word there. To give subtlety to the simple. What is that word subtlety? It's knowing you have a desired outcome, right? And it's knowing all the individual steps needed in order to come to that desired outcome. Okay, so it's the in-depth thinking process, the forethought in-depth thinking process. To give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. Verse 6, to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their what? Their dark sayings. Meaning that it's not simply on the surface, but it's something that has to be dug and dug and dug in order to comprehend what it's meaning. That doesn't mean we just come up with whatever we think it means either. It has to be seeking for precisely what God intends his Proverbs to say. Okay? So, bottom of page 2. So, we see that his design is perfect. We have to, he has perfectly designed his creation to work precisely as he's designed it to, leaving no part out, no nothing. He has placed man inside of that. And in order for man to be able to interact in that creation as his creator designed him to, he must accurately know his creator and seek to interact in that creation as his creator has designed him to. Now, the Creator has also designed it to where that man must study and work, or mankind, man or woman. When I say man, it's not simply male, okay? But that God has designed it where that man has to work at it and work at it. The finite human being, this is a huge surprise. The finite human being has to work to know the infinite. Isn't it silly how the finite human being just thinks, oh, I know God. I know what that means. I read it once. No, we're studying the very words of the infinite creator. So, the bottom of page 2. Both of these lines of this proverb reveal one design, a design with two distinct sides, and each side is just as much God's design as the other. The first, okay, so what are those two lines? Gathering in the summer exists a son causing comprehending, and was sleeping in the harvest exists a son causing shame. Or he that gathereth in the summer exists a wise son. It kind of gives we have a different thought process when we read that today. So anyway, so those two lines are the two distinct sides, and each side is just as much God's design as the other. It is God's design for the first line to exist. It is God's design for the second line to exist. It's not that God has a design, but you can break that design, and that which is outside of that design is not controlled by the Creator. You see what I mean? So God has a manner for us to exist, but if I break that, God doesn't have a design over here. Of course he does. Of course he does. So we'll go over that. So the first line gives God's design for man's existence. And the second gives the design for those who violate the design of God that he has given us and has commanded us to exist in. So the first line is the design that God has commanded us to exist in. The second line is God's design if man refuses to live in that design. And we'll go over the purpose in that near the end here. The repercussions that exist for the purpose of causing the man to repent. Let me back up, sorry. The first gives God's design for man's existence, and the second gives the design for those who violate the design of God that he has given us and has commanded us to exist in. The repercussions that exist for the purpose of causing the man to repent. So the reason for the second line, the repercussions, the shaming occurs, that needs to be phrased better. Something in my head doesn't always come out on paper right. But the reason the shaming occurs is to cause the necessary pressure and uncomfortability so that man will repent, change his mind, and not do that again, but exist in God's design in that manner. repent, change one's mind, and return to the design of God that brings perfect blessing. So by refusing God's perfect design, by refusing that first line, you are stating, we would never, see, the sad thing is we never say it because we know what not to say, but we'll just live it and with a smile on our face. we're pretty silly. But by living in that second line, we're saying, Lord, in this situation, in this area of my life, I don't want your blessing. I know what's better for me. It'll work out. Don't worry about it. Okay? The first line states that the sun who is gathering in summer is wise. Now, I literally translated it there, causing comprehending. Here's why. The Hebrew word translated wise is maskil. You see that in the English there next to it, maskil, which is a hiphil verb, which denotes causative action, meaning you're causing yourself to do something, right? If you're walking, are you simply walking or are you causing yourself to walk? If you're thinking, are you thinking or are you causing yourself to think?
You're thinking, make yourself walk.
Right. So so whenever you do something, you're causing yourself to do that.
Right.
You see, so there's a causative aspect in this, and this causation is incredibly important. Okay, there's a reason why the Lord just didn't give a simple cal verb here. Okay, or an imperfect verb, but he made it a participle and he made it causative. That is incredibly important. And this word that I could find, it may be used more, is used 16 times in the scriptures. The word is translated into different variations of 4 words. It's translated consider, wise, understand, and prudent. Now, isn't that interesting how one word could cover all of those English words? So let's take a look at it. Let's look at the context at which those words are in, and it will help. Let's go to Psalm 41:1. Oh, look at the bottom of the page there. Psalm 41:1 states, "Blessed is he that considereth the poor. The Lord will deliver him in time of trouble." That word considereth is the exact same word. So if causing, comprehending. So there's that focus of causing oneself to care or comprehend towards the poor, to take care of them in some manner. Right? It's not ignoring them. It's not caring about them because they can't do something for you back. Right? It's you're caring about the least of those, so to speak. Okay? So there's a lot there, but we'll have to go over that one another day. And then another one translated wise in 1 Samuel 18, verse 14 through 15. "And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him." Why was the Lord with him? Because he caused himself to be seeking to comprehend the ways of his Lord. You see that? So it has that causative comprehending, like I'm making myself desire to exist in a specific manner and comprehend how God's designed me to exist in this situation. "Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely," I should have highlighted that one too, "he was afraid of him." It's not that David just walked around like one of the wise men of the time that were anti-godly. Saul was afraid of him because David sought to interact with everything in God's design, and the Lord was with him because of that. And the king can't go up against that. That's too much for him. You see that? So, very, 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 the king can't control him. You see, so a lot there, but we'll continue. Okay, so translated, understand. Psalm 14, verse 2. "The Lord looked down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there were any that did understand." And look at that second line. This is synonymous parallelism. This one's very, very clear in just a short verse. It's synonymously tied with "and seek God." So to seek God is a synonymous term with this causative, to cause comprehension. So that one's very clear. And then the word translated prudent. Therefore, in Amos 5:13, the prudent shall keep silence in that day, for it is an evil time. So there's a causing to comprehend a specific situation and interact with it accurately instead of interacting with it however my flesh wants to interact with it. So this is why it's translated wise in this context. But it's not how we tend to look at the word wise today. as, oh, he's just smart. No, that's not what it's saying. That's not what it's saying. Okay. Thus, we can see the word translated wise in this verse carries the meaning of one who is causing himself to seek to interact with every individual design criterion of God, precisely as the Creator designed the one seeking to do so. He is one who is dedicated to comprehending his Father's will, his Father's design for his existence, so that he can accurately represent his Father. Is that not what the Son in the first line is doing? He's seeking to accurately represent his God pertaining to harvest. What's God's design for the harvest? To be harvested in a specific way, right? So, really important there. Okay, next. This wisdom, or causing comprehension, takes more than effort. Okay? It must be what the child of God lives by, not at moments or certain days of the week, but at all times. The son who is causing comprehending on the day of harvest, because that's when he's doing it. He's doing it on the day of harvest, right? Must possess the knowledge of what the plant must look like in order to be ready to harvest. So for him to be causing comprehending on the day of harvest, he has to be comprehending if he has multiple products, if he has multiple plants, multiple harvests, he has to be knowing what each one is to look like for when it's ready, which one needs to be harvested first, which one harvested last, right? All of this has to be planned out. He has to be knowing it on the day of harvest. He must know what ripens first and the time window he has to collect the harvest and already have the needed storage ready for it. Whether it's going to market, whether it's going to the house, whether once the crop is brought in, whether it needs dried out, right? All of these things, see, that causing comprehension of all of the needs for the future as soon as the harvest moving forward. Okay? In fact, he must already have in mind exactly the steps needed to be taken to take the harvest from the field to the market to be sold, or from the field to the storage area where they will hold the harvest till ready to be eaten. Thus, there must be complete forethought needed and complete afterthought needed. So, it's all of the knowledge encompassed in that causing comprehension on the day of harvest necessitates that causing comprehension from the very beginning of the planting of the seed, to the spacing of the seed, to the depth of the seed, to the construction of the soil, of precisely what it needs. You see? Okay, we'll continue. So, but there is much more preparation needed that is foundational. In order for this to exist, there has to be something before it. In order for the day of harvest to come, the phrase causing comprehending, which is one word in the Hebrew, indicates the direction of his heart, his thinking, pertaining to receiving the instruction given to him by his parents, including how God has designed him to interact with his parents as as well recognizes his responsibility to his Creator to do so. How is this young man, this son, causing comprehending? In order to do that, he had to have submitted himself to the teaching of his parents or his instructors in righteousness, whatever the situation may be. He must have recognized his responsibility before God to submit himself to the learning of God's instruction. He must have an accurate relationship with his parents in order to receive into the heart that instruction of causing comprehension. So he's causing comprehension, but all of that information had to come into him first, which necessitates that somebody teach him, but he also receive. So his relationship to his instructors, whether parents or somebody else, his relationship to them must be accurate, knowing that what they're giving him is God's design. So in order for him to be at this point, he has to have already come to a thought process in the past to where that instruction that is given, that is of God, is of absolute importance. Because here he is causing comprehension. This is a constant activity. Okay? This is a constant action in the present. So, at some point, how do I say this? He had to recognize his relationship to his parents or his instructors and recognize God's design for it and recognize that what they're giving is God's design. And he has to want instruction. Okay, this is the key element. He has to want instruction. Now, when you're being instructed in something, is it because you already know it? Or you don't know it? Right, you don't know it. Which means you're either not doing it at all or you're doing it the wrong way. So that instruction is going to give you truth, but in order to receive that truth, you have to want that over what you currently think. But you see, our natural hearts, when we're you use the word instructed, or when we are corrected, because instruction is giving correction to truth. When we are corrected, we bristle at that, don't we? You have to be willing. You have to recognize that I don't know everything, but my God does. And as I'm given instruction, that instruction, that correction is giving me truth. It's giving me life. It's allowing me to correct and right myself in his design more accurately. Thank you so much. I need that. I have to have that. But what is the natural inclination of not just a child, but a human being? Never needed that before. I don't need that now. I'm not listening to you. I have experience. You see. So but the key element here is that heart is a new heart. A new heart that's created by God. A clean heart that desires that correction and that instruction in righteousness. Right? So that I can be causing, what is that? It's causing comprehension. So me acquiring it. And then now that I have it, I don't care what I thought about before. Now I have truth. Whatever it costs, that's what it costs. It doesn't matter. Now I have truth with a capital T. Now I use that and I cause comprehension from what I know, seeking to evaluate everything in life according to what I know of who my God is, while I'm seeking to learn more and acquire more and acquire more. You see, the heart here is the key. It's the thinkings of the individual. We cannot get angry. We will naturally want to, but we cannot allow ourselves to get angry when we are corrected. When we are corrected in truth, should not our hearts, since we're children of our God, jump for joy at correction? Now, verifying its accuracy, of course, right? Just because someone corrects you doesn't mean they're right either. But what we're looking for is correction from our God that can come through a person too. That can come through a person that's angry at you and hates God and is cursing you out. But something he's saying is actually accurate. You say, you know what? Thank you. I do need to fix that. Thank you. Well, who does that? That's my point. And as long as we have that attitude, we will not be growing in the wisdom of our God. See, our pride has to die. Do you see how that pride will kill us? Right? But I must seek to be instructed by my God in every aspect. So, the phrase causing comprehending, which is one word in the Hebrew, indicates the direction of his heart, his thinking, pertaining to receiving the instruction given to him by his parents, including how God designed him to interact with his parents. So the son has to know how God designed him to interact with his parents, to be submissive, as he as well recognizes his responsibility to his creator to do so. That the son has to recognize that the reason the father is instructing him is because the father loves him and desires for God's design to be accomplished in that child's life. And for that child to reject that will only cause that child shame. Because when you have a 20-year-old that acts like a 5-year-old, it's a great shame, isn't it? Yes, it is. So, last page here. It shows that he has submitted his will, his desires. By the way, his will is a verb, his willing, his wanting, his desires, his thinkings, to the mind of his parents or his instructors of righteousness. Once again, righteousness is capitalized on purpose. It reveals that his heart is submitted to his designer and is constantly seeking to acquire more knowledge and understanding of God's design that he needs now and that he will need in the future, and how he specifically is to interact in it. This son desires what his parents say and builds his life upon it. Now you say, well, I don't have, I'm full grown now. Who's our heavenly parent? That's the parallel that we're to be drawing right now. Recognizing that the parents are teaching him the design of God for his existence. Is our Heavenly Father teaching us his design for our existence? Then if we're rejecting it, we're simply shaming ourselves. And recognizing the immeasurable value of what is being taught and correlates together all of the instruction accurately. Wow, what did I do with that word? Okay. Together of all of the instruction accurately to arrive at the designed outcome, not desired outcome by the human being, the designed outcome by the designer. Thus, he causes comprehension. In order for this to occur, in order for him to cause comprehension, he must understand the value and importance of learning and understanding God's design. This son will gather in the summer harvest, being that he has given himself to learn what he is needing to know, God's design pertaining to his crop, and has perfectly prepared himself in the instruction that was given. And he will reap the creator-designed blessing that God has established. God has designed us to enjoy the harvest. The second line now take all of the positives, everything we've talked about so far, okay? Keep that in mind as we go through. Because I didn't write it all back out. I wrote this with the thought that thinking would be in mind. So the second line gives the designed outcome for the son who rejects the instruction of his instructors in righteousness and is not valuing the design of his creator. And so what does that entail? He is doing the opposite of everything we just discussed pertaining to that heart direction, how he views his parents or his instructors, all of that. He's not doing that. And he has chosen self-comfort, self-authority, self-rule over the work of causing comprehending. Because that's work. And I don't want to do that. Which is a criterion of the design of the Creator, necessary to arrive at the designed outcomes. Without the working to cause comprehension, we will never come to the designed outcomes. To this son, studying is boring. It does not entertain him, and thus he loses interest, being that he is governed by his own selfishness. In his errant mind, the instructors in righteousness are a shame. Think about it. Let's get out of the son-parent relationship. We'll do the child of God to the father relationship. If God has given his design, and I am not causing myself to comprehend it, why am I not doing that? Because I see his design as a shame, something that's not to be desired, something that's looked down upon. And what I want is to be glorified. You see, so it's the opposite thinking. So in his errant mind, the instructors in righteousness are a shame. As their value system, truth is in his mind shame as well. Something not to live by, something worthless. Thus, his outcome will be that he causes shame to himself, as everyone around him will see after the harvest, when everyone else has all of their crops gathered, sufficient to sell and eat till the next harvest. This son will be left without, needing to then beg others who did cause comprehension, for enough. So he will need to beg them for enough just to eat for that day. Just for that day. He can say, I didn't know, all he wants to. But the fact is, how often do we hear that? How often do we hear that? When somebody violates the design of God and it gets absolutely well known and they're shamed by it. I didn't insert it in here, but I was going to put in the occurrence of Adam and Eve in the garden, and they were both ashamed and tried to cover themselves, knowing they were in violation. Right? So the very first instance that we see this happening. How often do they say, well, I just didn't know? Did the individual not know because the information was not available? Or did he not know because he didn't value it and he wasn't seeking and he wasn't causing comprehending? The design of God was available to him just like it was to everybody else. So the fact of not knowing is no excuse. He can say, I didn't know all he wants to, but the fact is that he didn't know, not because the information was not available, but because he had rejected the information, the design of God that was available to him. But he had to put in the work. He needed to cause comprehension. The whole just Jesus take the wheel movement, they're not seeking to cause comprehension. And it's a violation of God's design. That's why it's destructive. So the Creator designed this to be the outcome of his sleeping, so that he will feel the shame and the undesirable experience. The violation of design will cause him to not make that error again and to submit himself to the design of God, so that he will also have the blessed outcome that those who cause comprehension did. So why the shaming? What? You see, it's important when there is a violation, it's important for there to be a consequence. Not simply, because you're mad and you have to be punished. Not because there has to be something that wakes them up in their head and says, oh, this is not a desirable outcome. It looked like the process to get there was desirable. I got to sleep. I got to relax. I don't really care what's being said. I'm a good Christian. I go to church every Sunday and I do this and I do that. And then all of a sudden, bam, it happens. See, that's needed. Think about the love of God. If God did not put that curb there for them to hit, right? Or that friction to happen, They would continue on and go farther and farther and farther and farther and destroy themselves even more. And we see that in people that keep rejecting and rejecting this shame. Instead of turning back, they just keep going in it. See, it's God's design for that to happen so that the person will come to themselves. Right? Like the prodigal son. So he will come to himself and say, what am I doing? This is not desirable. I've got to fix this. And go back to the design of God. That was the purpose for Cain, was it not? For the ground not to yield to him? And to put a mark on him so that no one will kill him. So he has to endure that difficulty his whole life for the purpose of him turning away from it and causing firmness to his Creator. Because what did he say? The sin lieth at the door. The sin offering is lying at the door at any time. At any time you can turn back. You see, so gathering in the summer exists, a sun causing comprehending. What the past tense was sleeping in the harvest exists, a sun causing shaming. So, any thoughts, additions, points? Okay. Yes, Haley.
Does my sleeping count as
Well,
I sleep in?
go ahead and turn that off.